So as you obviously know, I have in front of me the M2 15-inch MacBook Air. I've been using this for about 6 months and I gotta say I am very impressed. There are some things that are bad about this laptop. There's a lot more things that are great about this laptop. I don't want anyone to think that I'm some sort of like diehard Apple fanboy. Just behind me here, I've got the Microsoft Laptop Studio 2, which is my editing machine that I've been using for the last couple of months. In tandem with this guy here, just to kind of see how each of them stack up to one another. It's a very odd comparison, I know, considering that's a $5,000 laptop and this is a $1,200 laptop, but you'd be surprised when you go between Windows and the new Apple Silicon. Like, I don't know what kind of magic and pixie dust they've put into these machines to make them work as well as they do, but they do a very fantastic job. So starting off, I did not clean this at all. So this is the midnight colorway of the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. I didn't want to clean it all because I wanted you to see what it looks like on a day-to-day when it's being used. So if I kind of go back and forth here, you can see that there's a ton of fingerprints on this guy. It does not do a good job of hiding them. If you are someone that is bothered by that, then you probably want to go with the silver colorway or even the space gray. I would suggest not going with the midnight. As great as it looks, it just doesn't do a good job at hiding fingerprints. But for me, that's neither here nor there. I'm looking at the screen, I'm not looking at the back. If I'm sitting at a coffee shop and someone is grossed out by what the back looks like, that is a them problem. I don't give a damn. I just care how it works. So as I just mentioned, this comes in at $12.99. If you have the education discount, I believe you get, I want to say 10% off. So you can definitely get this cheaper if you are a student or teacher or someone in the education field. At $12.99 though, the base model, and that is actually what I am using. That's what I've used this entire time. I know a lot of tech reviewers will tell you never buy a base model, like at the very least upgrade the RAM. But what about people that don't have the money to upgrade that RAM? What about people who don't care about, making this a 7-year device? They just want it for the 4 years of university or, 2, 3 years of making videos. They want something that they can edit with, whatever the case is. So me personally, even though I shoot 4K 10-bit videos, I just went with the base model on this guy and I've got a lot of good things to say about this device. So I know for the best retention, you're supposed to put the bad stuff at the end and make people wait for that, but I'll just tell you what the bad things about this device are right now. So for the 6 months that I've used it, I've had very few things that I dislike about this, but the thing that I dislike about it is something that I notice a lot. Some of you that use this device may not have that issue, but for me, it is a big one. So using this device, there are a very small amount of ports, okay? You've got 2 USB-C ports on the left side and the charging port on this side as well. And then on the opposite side, all you have is a headphone jack. It would be nice if there were USB ports on either side. It would be nice if maybe there was an SD reader on this side, but you have to remember, who is this MacBook made for? It's not necessarily made for creators or high-end power users. I just happen to be someone that makes videos for YouTube, TikTok, and IG, so I do need those extra ports. Again, if that's not you, then you might not have this issue. That being said though, if you are someone that is a student and you are constantly using, let's say, the USB-C dongles because you didn't buy extra storage for this or whatever have you, then you also might find that it's a little bit annoying only having 2 ports there, especially if the devices that you're plugging in, such as my SD card reader that I plug in, it ends up blocking both of the ports. Whenever I make a video, I have to put the SD reader in, get everything off that video first, then take the reader out, and then I can get my audio and do all of that with my Rode Wireless Pro. So it's annoying having to go back and forth. Even if it was just 1-in-1 on each side, I think that would fix that issue for me, but it's not surprising of an issue for Apple. They want to upsell you. They want you to buy better models. But again, if you're just a student, you're someone that doesn't really worry about the whole USB-C thing, you're not worried about all the peripherals, etc., then you're probably not going to find that as an issue at all. If you've made it this far, do me a favor and drop 2 black hearts down in the comments so I can thank you personally. So that's the bad. Going with the good. Overall, the design of this is fantastic. I also have the 13-inch M1 MacBook Air. That was actually my main device before picking this one up. On my M1 MacBook Air, I used to do everything. It ran my YouTube channel for 2 years. It was my main editing device for all of my Instagram Reels and TikToks, but I was getting tired of squinting at the little screen. I still love the battery life. I still love the processing power on it, but for this, or for my use case, I needed a screen that was a little bit bigger because I was doing so much editing and I had switched to DaVinci. And so having that 15-inch screen on this laptop here is amazing. It's a huge game changer. It's the perfect size. If you ever use the 16-inch MacBook Pro or any 16-inch or 17-inch laptop, you know that those things are humongous. They're massive. They're hard to fit in a backpack. They're cumbersome to take around. If you bring them on a flight, it sucks because it doesn't really fit properly on the little fold-out table. 15 inches it's just small enough that it fits in every bag easily, and it's just large enough that you're able to have enough screen real estate for whatever you're doing, be it watching content, word processing, or like myself, editing a lot of videos. The laptop itself is tiny. It's super, super slim. Obviously, it's what we expect from the MacBook Airs. I honestly really can't say anything bad about the overall design of this. One of my small concerns when I picked this laptop up was whether or not it was going to overheat. As you may or may not know, the MacBook Airs don't have an internal fan like the MacBook Pros do. So I was kind of curious as to how this would handle heavier processes without having that fan. But like I said, coming from the 13-inch M1 MacBook Air, a much smaller device, one that you would expect to get a lot hotter, I was pretty confident that this one would be okay, being a little bit bigger, having a little bit more internal space. Also being the M2 iteration, I expected the chip would be just a little bit more efficient. I've not had any issues with it whatsoever in terms of overheating or worrying about the processing power due to how much heat this guy was creating. I film everything in 4K on a Sony a7 IV. I go between 8-bit and 10-bit colors. Like I figure on YouTube, nobody really cares about colors that much anyway, so I can get away with doing the 8-bit timelines. When I'm editing on this device, and I'm scrolling through or scrubbing through my timeline, it really doesn't hitch for me, especially when I'm using that 8-bit codec. The second I go up to 10 is when you start to notice it struggling just a little bit more. But again, this is the M2 base model, only 8 gigabytes of memory on this device. And the fact that it's even handling that 8-bit 4K timeline without any issues whatsoever is pretty crazy. And on top of that, the export times are phenomenal. So I know that someone is definitely going to ask, is it worth it to still pick up the 15-inch M2 or should I wait for the M3? I don't want to say it's a silly question, but for me, every time I get that, I kind of think like, if you're sitting down and you're contemplating whether or not you need to buy something, and you actually have a true need for it, then what's the point of waiting? Difference between the M1 chip and the M2 chip were negligible. I mean, some people even reported that the M2 chip was slightly slower than the M1 when it came to varied processes as a creator. If you're expecting the M3 to be this big change when it comes to the MacBook Air, I mean, I personally don't think it's worth waiting, unless of course you're just waiting for the new one to drop in order to pick up the M2 at a cheaper price. But I mean, at $1,200, I already think that this is priced almost perfectly. If you were to put a similar Windows laptop beside this, and granted, I've not tried every single 15-inch Windows laptop at this price point, but I suspect that if you were to put these two laptops side by side, so your MacBook Air 15-inch M2 next to a 15-inch Windows laptop. Sure, the Windows is going to be better at some things. I think that the MacBook is going to be a lot more efficient, a lot zippier when it comes to the majority of other things. But a huge caveat is the whole gaming aspect. So if you're planning to play video games on your laptop, I know that Apple said that their intention is to get better at doing that and allowing you to play AAA titles on MacBooks moving forward. I don't really play that many PC games to begin with, but even on my M1 13-inch MacBook Air upstairs, I would play lighter games like TFT and have absolutely no issues. And if you have an Apple Arcade subscription, then you've got your games there. But I really think that the majority of people that buy MacBooks or are even considering picking up a MacBook anyways aren't necessarily into the whole gaming scene. So Windows definitely takes the cake when it comes to the gaming aspect. this guy is still going to be very efficient, very snappy, very fast when it comes to almost everything else. But at the end of the day, it's very subjective. And as someone who uses both a Windows laptop and a MacBook on a very regular basis, I can definitely say with confidence that most people would be more than happy with spending just $1,200 and picking this guy up versus spending $5,000 for something like this. But again, granted, these are meant for two very different people. And I don't know, maybe I put it through some unfair scenarios or something, but there are definitely times where my 15-inch MacBook Air timelines run way smoother on this device than they do on a fully spec'd out laptop Studio 2. And so after 6 months of use, I can definitely say if you're on the fence about grabbing this guy, go ahead and pull the trigger. That's it for me. Much love as always, throwing up two of them, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.